We're going to be talking about pre-construction today, guys. And so let me start right with the screen share. When you meet a buyer client, one of the first choices they have to make is, everybody can see the PowerPoint? I don't have any videos on. Okay. One of the first choices your client's going to make before you even take them out is whether they want to buy brand new pre-construction or whether they want to buy a resale condo. Okay. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. It really comes down to, again, what Rick was talking about in the buyer presentation last week. What is a client's motivation? Why are they buying, and what their current situation is. So if they can afford to wait and they like bright, shiny, and new, then pre-construction might be the way to go. If they're limited in being able to have 20% down, for example, and they want to get into the market right away, then obviously they're going to go with resale. So again, it's going to come down to your conversation with your client. So what is pre-construction? A pre-construction sale is when a developer is selling units before they've actually started construction and right up until they're done the building or the subdivision. There are differences between pre-construction condos and pre-construction homes, and we'll get into a little bit of that during this morning as well. The biggest appeal, obviously, for pre-construction or buying new is it is brand new. You'll be the first owner, and you get to choose some of your finishes and things. Okay. So some of the benefits, like I said, you're buying brand new, you get to choose finishes. Usually developers will have 3 or 4 choices in terms of color scheme and types of flooring, types of kitchen cabinets, that kind of thing. If you want to go outside of that, usually for condos, they're pretty strict because they want to get it done and finished and be in and out of the project as quick as possible. With homes, you may have a little bit more discretion on what you can pick and choose. One of the other big benefits, if you want to have that 20% down payment and you want to avoid the CMHC premium that you would have if you were less than 20%, pre-construction gives you deposit structure, so you can pay your deposit in installments. So it's a little bit easier on you, and that's usually over 1 to 4 years, depending on the time frame of the project. Pre-construction sales will probably be one of the easiest sales you'll do, because once you've established your buyer as wanting a pre-construction, your job is finding the new projects that will fit their criteria, walking them into the sales center, and then handing them off to the sales center staff. The sales center staff will walk them through everything the project in terms of the amenities it offers, the actual location, what else is going on around that area, and you're literally handing off. You're likely to make a higher commission on pre-construction as well, especially for condos. Most condo projects will give you 3 to 4% versus a typical 2.5%. You do want to be very careful with home builders or subdivisions, as sometimes they will only offer you a flat fee, and that can range anywhere from $1,500, which would really shortchange you on your commission, to maybe $10,000, and sometimes they don't even offer that. So before you take them in, always check with the developer what they're offering and what they're cooperating with you on. When you're buying brand new, it's a couple of years out, so you're likely to see some type of appreciation during the construction phase. This gives clients an opportunity to buy today for one price. They may be end users, which means they're going to move into the home or the condo when it's finished. which is great for them because they bought low, and by the time they move in, value should be higher typically. The other option they have is they may be able to flip that unit before they actually even take possession, and that's called an assignment. We're going to get into that on a different week because that's a little bit more complicated. And the other big thing about buying brand new is you get a new home warranty through a company called Tarion. Um, and the first 2 years of that warranty are really good. They really protect you on the construction side, the fit and finish, even little things like paint and your kitchen cupboards. And then the longer period there, it's good for about 7 years. 7 years is more structural. There's no issues with foundation, that kind of thing. And if there were, the Tarion warranty comes in and it doesn't impact you as the owner if it's a house, or if you're part of a condo, all the owners that make up that condo corporation or that building. Okay. A couple of the challenges or cons with pre-construction. Typically, it will be more expensive than resale. I'll get into a little bit later today what you want to look for in terms of price versus resale to see if it's going to be a good buy for your client. Okay. You have to be a visual person if you're buying off pre-construction. You're buying off a floor plan or off pictures. You can't touch and feel. Unless you're buying a subdivision, sometimes they'll have a model home, and even that usually doesn't go up until they've done the first round of sales. Okay, so if your client is not good at visualizing, doesn't know how to figure out space, that kind of thing, what I always recommend is find a project that the developer's done recently, and look for units that are for sale in that most recently completed project. Take your client through on a showing on that unit so they can get a feel for the quality of the construction, the type of finishes the builder offers, and get a feel for the type of space that they're buying off that floor plan. Okay. One of the things you want to consider for buyers is HST on the purchase. The government does give you a rebate on that, especially if you're a first-time buyer and you're going to be an end user. For investors, there is some discussion that needs to take place between their accountant and their lawyer when they're buying pre-construction for investment purposes. There's an imbalance in the legal rights that you as a buyer would have or your client would have versus the developer. So when you buy pre-construction, you're giving up a sizable down payment. You're usually putting down 20%. If your client cannot close, they are going to be out that deposit. There's no small claims court, no nothing. It's very clear in the agreements. They're really lopsided to the developer. And so you want to make sure that your client will be able to close on something 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And they need to take into account things like, they don't want to be changing jobs or careers 6 months or 3 months before closing, right? They want to be in a stable position. You have to get qualified for your mortgage twice when you first buy it as a pre-construction. And obviously when it's finished, they will have to qualify again. So they don't want to take on any new debts and that kind of thing. On the developer side, it's imbalanced towards them because if they decide to, for example, cancel the project, they didn't sell enough or the numbers don't make sense for them, they can give your client back their deposit, but they haven't earned any interest. And a lot of developers who had hiccups over the last few years, the cost of building has gone up. So a lot of them did cancel only to rename the project, put it back up on the market at a higher price per square foot or a higher price per unit. And it left a lot of clients scrambling because they were now quickly priced out of the market. Okay, so that's something you really want to have a conversation with them about. Risks wise, we hope these construction projects and real estate in general is always on an upward trend. We can't guarantee that. We don't have crystal balls. So there is a chance that the project, once it's finished, might be a little bit lower than what your client paid. They're locked in. They don't have any recourse for that. Okay. That may mean they have to come up with more money in terms of their down payment before the lender that they have will give them their mortgage. So that's a risk. Interest rates right now are super low. I just refinanced my house at 1.75. Pre-construction being a couple of years out, interest rates will likely be higher. So you have to factor that in for your clients. Okay, don't do their payments and stuff like that at 1.75 or 2%. You probably want to be using 3 or 3.5% just to be conservative. Um, Financing, like I just said, you have to get approved twice. A lot can happen in somebody's life within 3 to 5 years, which is typical for a condo. So getting approved today doesn't necessarily mean you'll be approved in the future. Typically, people are earning more as they go deeper into their careers, but they may outgrow the condo that they've purchased or plan to purchase. They may get relocated. So the subdivision they were planning to move into in Oakville, well, they just got a new job over in Ajax or something, and the commute's going to kill them. So, sorry, I got some comments here, guys. Um, Completion date. So typically for condos, you're looking at least 3 years out, and that usually gets pushed back quite a bit. So I usually add a year on condo projects at least for when it's going to be finished. That means your client's going to be renting potentially for 3 to 4 years longer than if they bought resale. Okay, so that's something they want to factor in. And then the finished product. There is, like I said, the best thing for me is take them through a project that the developers recently completed to get them a feel for what their completed project's going to look like. But that doesn't necessarily mean the new project is going to be the same. Okay, it's dependent on the trades they have in on one project versus the other. Did they run into any kind of financial hardship where they have to cut corners, that kind of thing. So again, there's no guarantee on what your client thinks they're buying and what they actually end up with is going to be there. Okay. Major differences: down payment. Typically, condo downtown, you're going to need 20% for pre-construction. There will be a deposit structure for that. What that means is when you go into the sales center, you're cutting them a check for $5,000 to hold the unit that your client's looking at. Within the first 30 days, you probably have to pay a balance up to 5% of the value of the condo. And then from there, it really varies on the developer. If they're a big developer like Tridel or Menkes or something like Great Golf, they may be a little bit more generous. They don't really need to rely on the lender who's lending for the development of the project. So you may have a little bit more time in between each installment. So your next 5% may be due, 90 days or 120 days. Whereas a smaller developer who's reliant on that money to get their construction financing may be 60 days. And then your third installment might be 120 days. So again, you want to make sure your client's got access to those funds within that installment period. Okay. With resale, obviously, you can buy as cheap as 5% if it's under $500,000. And then if it's between 500 and $1 million on resale, that portion would need 10%. And then only properties that are over $1 million will your client need a 20% down. Okay. On the trade-off to that is they will avoid the CMHC premium, insurance premium. Okay. Cooling off periods. With pre-construction condos, there is a mandate by the province that you will have a 10-day cooling off period. That allows your client to take that pre-construction contract to their lawyer. They take it to the bank, they get their financing approval, they have the lawyer rip apart that agreement to make sure that there's nothing in there that is not to the benefit of your buyer. And you can push back for some additional maybe incentives with the developer at that point. On a hot project, you're not going to get much, but in a project that might be sitting that the developer is a little bit more motivated on, you might be able to swing a better deal for your clients. Okay. And then on a house or a subdivision, you have to be careful. In a good market, a healthy market, pre-COVID, a lot of subdivision developers were allowing some type of cooling off period, but they do not have to allow it. It's not a mandate or anything like that by the government or anything like that. So I've spoken to a few of you over the last few weeks who took clients into housing projects in Oakville, for example, and a developer was basically saying that it's a firm agreement as of the date that they sign. Okay, so again, something you want to keep in mind. You may want to call the development ahead of time to find out if that's the case. If it is, my advice, try and see if you can get a lawyer or somebody to go with you that can review the contract on the spot and give you some type of opinion. Okay. Closing costs. Typically with resale, we say budget between 1.5–2% of your purchase price for additional closing costs, and that would include your land transfer tax, your lawyer, title insurance, and things like your the taxes on your CMHC premium if you're putting down less than 20%. With pre-construction, you have those same fees. In addition to that, you're going to have utilities fees for hookup because it's brand new from the utilities companies. That can be anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 to $2,000. You will have development charges that the municipality will pass on to the developer, and the developer usually passes on to the buyer. Those can range, depending on the developer, anywhere from $0 in some communities. For example, Guelph, Cambridge don't really charge those, to thousands and tens of thousands downtown. I know Brad Lamb, who's a really good developer downtown, gets a premium for his products. His development charges on a typical one bedroom is over $20,000, where most other developers, $20,000 would mean you're paying on a two bedroom. Okay, so your job as an agent is to know as much about the developer as possible and their track record or their history in terms of what their closing costs are. Okay, that's where you're going to add value for your client in a pre-construction. Your relationship with that developer will add value in terms of how quickly you can get your client in, and that's just based on hustle and leveraging things like this group where Rick has some good relationships and can get you first access or VIP access. Okay. Occupancy fees is the other big difference. When a development is done, especially on a condo, I like to think of it as a big pie. So everybody's buying a piece of pie when they're buying a condo. And until it's finished, the developer owns the entire pie. Once he's finished the building and he's ready to cut the pie into slices for individual owners, there needs to be a transfer of title. And what happens is somebody who bought on the second, third, fourth floor, they start moving in before the entire building is finished, and they start paying what they call an occupancy fee. It's almost like paying rent to the developer. Your mortgage does not start at this point. So they are paying a proportion of the developer's interest for their construction loan. They are paying their proportion of estimated property taxes for that period. And the appropriate proportion of condo fees or estimated condo fees for that period. Typically, it's lower than what your client would be paying in rent, but it is money that goes to the developer, especially the interest portion. The property taxes should be sent forward to the municipality when the building is actually finished, and condo fees should be going towards the condo corporation that's going to be set up. Typically, it's anywhere from 3 to 6 months occupancy fee, so it's not a huge number. But again, I know of developers who are not very good. One that's gone bankrupt since. They had a building a couple of years ago that was in occupancy for 2 years. I've got a client who bought into a pre-construction 2 years ago. He moved in, October of last year, and he's still in occupancy. So he's getting pretty upset, and I'm pretty upset because it makes me look bad. A lot of that has to do with COVID for this year, but it's not something he was expecting. Okay, so I've got a question here, guys. So the difference occupancy fee and maintenance fee. Let me break it down, actually, guys. I'm gonna close this for a second. Bear with me. If anybody's got any questions, now's the time to type it into the chat. So okay. Oh, we still got people coming in too. Okay. Can you guys see my Word document? It just says occupancy fees.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So a maintenance fee or condo fee is just, usually they'll say it's 50 cents or something like that per square foot. So for a one bedroom, you might pay $300 a month or something like that. Occupancy fee is your estimate of your condo fee plus your estimate of property taxes plus the interest on the developer's loan. And that's your occupancy. So your condo fee might still be an estimate of $300. Let's say your property taxes are $200. The one part of the equation we don't really know is what the interest is on developer's loan. Typically, I would say it's based on the value of the unit. So if you bought something for $500,000, you're putting down 20% as a client, as a buyer. So their mortgage is going to be on $400,000. If we were to just use current market rates, which are, let's say, just 2%. I'm just trying to get a little bit math heavy here, guys, but bear with me. So the interest portion would be $400,000, which would be the typical mortgage, times 2%, and then you want to divide by 12. And I don't know what that number is. Let me, 8,000 a year divided by, oops. So let's say it's 600, and I'm going to round up, $670. So that adds up to 1170 if I did my math right. So that's what your occupancy fee would be on a $500,000, give or take. Again, I'm estimating. I don't know what the developer's interest loan might be. It's probably not going to be 2%. It's probably going to be 4%. So then that you'd be looking at $1,200 a month instead of $670 a month. Okay. So again, typically, if you clients renting a 1-bedroom, they're probably paying something around the 16 to 1800 a month anyways. So it should be lower than what they're paying for rent, but they are still renting. In essence, still renting. Okay. Jojo had a question. Best place to learn about developers? Honestly, it's word of mouth. This group's a good one. So I would typically say the ones that have been around forever. So Tridel, Great Golf, Minto, Menkes, really good developers. And it really depends by region. Those are the big ones downtown. The one that was really bad was Urban Corp. They had the nickname Urban Crap. They've since gone bankrupt. It's been a few years since they went bankrupt. They are the ones who did, if anybody does downtown stuff, 36 Lisgar in Queen West. Those buildings are a mess because they went bankrupt before they even finished it. Okay. Arisha said, how do you about it? New projects. Okay, there is a really good website. Sorry, shouldn't say really good, but Buzz Home. Yes, Daniels was good, Renee. I've heard some mixed things about them. So even Mattamy was great. They're doing a bunch of stuff in Milton. I've heard complaints about their new stuff. It's not as good as it used to be. Okay. For researching pre-construction, I like to use Buzz Home. Okay. It's now the information on their website is only as good as the information they put in. It's a good start. So if somebody's asking for new developments, you can search neighborhoods or regions and Buzz Home, and then drill down to specific areas. Once you go there, you probably want to Google or start calling the developer to find out, or go directly to the developer's website to see what the new projects are. Buzz Home doesn't always update everything. So it might be showing as a new development and it's already been up and running and finished for the last 2 years or something. So just be careful with that. I am going to, let's see, do we have any other questions here? Rick, welcome, brother. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with an area or a developer, ask agents that work that neighborhood. Go to the sales office, go meet the developer, create a relationship. That's how you're going to start getting first access to projects. Sorry, Renee said, yeah, Baker Real Estate, Milbourne. They're very helpful. It's good to make relationships with them. They have first access to a lot of condo projects. So if you can make good with somebody there, you'll be able to make some headway in terms of getting first access and things. Okay. While I have you guys here and I've got Word up and running, do you guys know how to tell if a project is worth investing in for pre-construction? And you guys can shut off your mic or type in the chat. How do you know if a project's good? If I tell you Brightwater, which launched in Port Credit in October, beginning of October, was charging $1,000 a foot, how do you know if that's a good deal?
You want to compare it to what the resales are in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So resale in Port Credit for condos is probably under $800 a foot. So is Brightwater a good buy? So, okay. So we got some answers here. So location, which is real estate number 101, right? Location, location, location. Uh, Length of project. Why is the length of the project is important is because the further out you are, um, the better chance of appreciation on a project. If there's a dip 1 year, um, you've got a better chance of it recovering by the time it's ready to close. Um, the developer themselves, a good reputation will get them a premium on their projects. I mentioned Brad Lamb earlier today. Um, he seems to get 15 to 20% premium over their projects downtown. And on resale, his buildings continue to get a premium. Okay. Um, and Rick mentioned the big thing is spread versus resale. Um, you guys might remember, I've said this a few times before, typically real estate grows in the GTA at around 4% a year. Okay. So keep that 4% in mind. If your project is 3 years out, if we just do the quick math, we would think that prices should be 12% higher in 3 years. That's just 4% a year. I'm not even compounding it, guys. I'm keeping it simple for you. Okay. So if you're looking at a pre-construction project now, and they are selling at 1,000 a foot, like I said, Brightwater was starting. And let's say resale is at 800 a foot. Now the thing with Brightwater is it's, I think the building one was 3 years out. The spread here, the premium is actually 20%. It's over 20%. And the way we get that is you take 800, you take 1,000 divided by 800. Right. I'm just going to do it for you. And the premium is actually 25%. Okay. So the additional 12, 13% that you're going to pay over what we think is what the spread should be. Number one, is the developer that much better than what's available on resale? Right? Is it a high-end luxury developer? Is the location better than what's available for resale? Brightwater is going to be brand new. They're going to have 4,000 units. They're going to have retail, commercial space. They're going to have parks. They're going to have schools. To me, there's a premium for that, and it's okay to pay that. How far out is it? It's right on the water as well, so you get a premium for that. So again, you have to do some analysis for your client. This is where your value add comes in. You want to look at everything that's going to affect the value of that. What are the interest rates at right now? Right now they're low. I can get to a resale and carry it for lower than I will 3 years from now when interest rates are back up at 4% or something. It's going to cost me more. Right? Rick, you got anything to add to this one?
Just in terms of comparing resale to,
yeah, like just that premium or that spread, like what else to justify paying 25% premium?
are we pro or like, you want me to give my honest opinion?
Right now, guys, I'm against pre-construction
If you guys are telling your clients to buy pre-construction, that's cool. You get a commission check, but my personal opinion, you're not serving them well.
Yeah.
My personal, and there's caveats to that, because if there are people that can't qualify for a mortgage right now, but you think they will in 3 or 4 years, You're tired. I'm always tired, bro. Listen, um, if they're can't qualify for mortgage and that's the only way they can get into real estate, that's fine. Um, that I can see that. Just look at that number right there. Your resale you can get at $800 a foot. Your pre-con is at $1,000 a foot. Okay, let's add some stuff to that. The first person that buys a property is responsible for the HST. Okay, you have there was a comment on the chat that's called levies. So all your levies, even though that they cap them, your closing costs instead of being, if you're buying it like say outside of the Toronto area, your closing costs are about 1.5% of the purchase price, I would say,
Mhm.
if it's a resale property. Bump that up by a percent. So your closing cost for a pre-construction will probably be 2.5. And maybe
Yeah.
I'm being nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus you're paying the HST. Now watch this. Speculation is a huge thing. So let's say there's 300 units in this condo development. I would say it'd be safe to say that at least 100 of them are investors. Speculation. Let's talk about that for a second. That right there, because of COVID, there's not, Airbnb is down. Outside investment is down from out of country because a lot of these people were getting investments by, I don't know, students coming from China, so their parents would buy a bunch of units. People that wanted to invest in Toronto, because the borders are shut, that is all going down. So I'm not sure if these investments are going to go up how they used to in the next 2 to 3 years. That's my opinion. However, this you cannot argue. There's going to be at least 40% investors in that building. What's going to happen come 2023 when that condo is up? You're going to be competing with a lot of supply. All those units are going to either go on for sale or for rent at the same time because they're registered at the same time. Bam. You have 100 units in that building that are either trying to rent or trying to buy, try to sell. There was a time that pre-construction was great, and I used to do it a lot. I'm not saying don't go sell these units. I'm not going to tell you to. This is my opinion. If I was guiding everybody on this call, this is my opinion. I don't think pre-construction is a good buy right now. Um, but rents are down, guys. Your ROI is going to be down because rents are down. Rents are down by a huge amount. I think like
25% downtown.
20%,
Easily.
25. There you
Yeah.
go. Look what's
It's
happening in the
crazy.
downtown market. So why would somebody buy Brightwater at $1,000 a foot in Port Credit if they can qualify for a mortgage today and not go buy something in downtown Toronto right now where you can get a hell of a steal that I've never seen before since I've been in real estate?
Yeah.
You can probably buy, let's say, in King West for probably less than that right now, but or the same. And now you can rent it out, so you have more time for your equity to build because your tenant's paying off your mortgage for you. You don't have all these closing costs. You don't have to pay HST. Guys, the other thing on a new construction, upgrades. They kill you with upgrades. With a condo, it's a little bit different, but with a house, they kill you on the upgrades. Like builder upgrades are expensive compared to. So if you buy something resale, guys, I'm going to shut up because I don't want to talk you guys out of not selling your clients pre-construction.
At the end of the day, guys, we talked about this at the start. It's when you sit down with your client, you're doing the buyer consultation, they're going to steer you. If they're looking for brand new, they need money, time to save a down payment, that kind of thing. Maybe pre-construction is an option, right? Your job is to educate them, like Rick is saying. So we're going to educate them. Hey, these are the risks of buying pre-construction. These are the benefits of buying pre-construction, right? There's a risk reward function here. Um, Ultimately, it's up to the client. You as an agent will typically earn a higher commission, on pre-con. That should not be your driving force. You also will not be paid until the project is done. So you might get a little bit now and a little bit, a year from now, and then the balance when it's finished. But
Exactly.
do you know what happens when they cancel the project? You got to pay back that commission.
And here, just to add to that, G guys,
Yeah.
it's all perspective, and you have to know the market. If I have a particular buyer that's interested in the condo right now and can afford to get a mortgage right now today, I can't find it in my heart to tell them to go buy a pre-construction. That's me. For all the reasons I told you. Plus, you get an interest rate today at 1.6, 7%.
Yeah.
That's free money. I don't know, man. I'm not a gambler, but I would bet money it won't be there in 4 years when this project is ready. So
No.
all signs to me, I would talk my guys out of pre-construction. And I know a lot of people there's this new wave of realtors that are coming in that like, hey, I want to get into pre-construction. I want to be a platinum agent. Well, just because you go and give worksheets, that doesn't mean you're a platinum agent. That doesn't even mean that your brokerage is a platinum brokerage. We can get into that later, but that's my
Actually,
take.
that's a good segue, brother. So, guys, Rick did the buyer presentation last week. When you're speaking to a client and it looks like they are going towards pre-construction, it's a little bit different because you want to prepare them, especially if they're buying a condo, because you got to move quickly. So I put together this quick 10 steps to buying pre-construction. So make sure your client has step one, 20 to 25% available between now and the end of the construction phase. Okay. They will need at least 5% in the first 30 days. That I can say with absolute certainty. And they will probably need the second 5% installment probably within the first 90 days of writing that contract. Okay. After that, it really depends on the developer, how quickly you're going to move. When we typically get a new project launched and you have access through this group, through another agent or whatever it is, you will get floor plans and price list anywhere from 3 to 7 days before they're taking what Rick mentioned, the worksheet. The worksheet is your offer to purchase. Your client needs to decide in those 3 to 7 days what units they want. I would recommend they pick 3, their first, second, and third choice, because nothing is guaranteed. And they need to basically buy off plan and this fancy brochure that you're going to send them. Okay. You submit a worksheet. What does that entail? That is just, hey, Mr. Rick, because he's doing a development on the East End, I want to buy this unit 1, or my second choice, unit C and unit D. Let's assume they're all around the $500,000 mark or something like that. I'm going to put that up pen to paper. I'm going to submit that along with a copy of my ID, your social insurance number if you're comfortable sending that, basically your FinTrack, which is why they're asking for your occupation, and your contact info. Those worksheets are on a first come, first served basis. If the building has 200 units and they get 1,000 worksheets, there's a good chance your client isn't getting one unless you were the first in and you have that relationship with that developer or the sales center. Okay. It's really important to let your client know a worksheet does not mean they are in a contract at this point. It's a lottery. That's the best way I can put it. Okay. Now, if you do get your worksheet accepted by the developer, they will call you and say, please bring in your client on such and such date and time so that we can allocate the unit. You're going to walk them into the sales center. You're going to introduce them to the sales staff there. You're going to hand them off, and your job is done. It'll be the easiest 4% you make out of that. Okay. Your job there, though, is to sit and observe, obviously. Oops. This thing's not. Um, you want to ask things there with the sales staff. Are the development levies capped? What is your charge for assignments if my client decides to assign this in the future? Um, are there any promos going on? Is there anything we can do? Maybe they're throwing in a locker with a value of 3,500. What if my guy doesn't want a locker? Can we get a rebate of 3,500 on the unit? Something like that. Anything that can add value. I would recommend you try and have that conversation with sales staff if you've built a relationship prior to taking your client in. And the sales guys will work with you to make you look good if you've done that. Okay. At that point, they sign the agreement at the sales center. You usually give them a check, a $5,000 deposit on the spot. And then their cooling off period starts for condos. They have 10 days to do their due diligence with their bank, with their lender, with their lawyer, and go through that contract. They also, for the next 10 days, will decide if they have buyer's remorse or not. Okay, so they get to really think about, is this the right unit for me? Is this the right project for me? If it's not, you say, sorry, we're not going to continue. They get their deposit back and you go shopping again. If they go ahead, they're going to ask for all their other checks and deposits, post-dated checks for the future deposits at that point. Okay. Oops. Okay. Unit assignment is not guaranteed. Typically, builders won't allow it until they've sold a certain percentage of their building. And there may be a cost involved. Usually at a bare minimum, you're going to pay for the lawyer for the developer as well. We're going to get into assignments, I think, next week. It deserves its own boot camp. So unit's finished. It's been 3 years. Your client gets a notice saying your unit's going to be delivered to you in about 4 weeks. Please come in for the PDI. That's a pre-delivery inspection. You should go with your client. It's almost like a home inspection walkthrough. I shouldn't say a home inspection, but it's a walkthrough prior to your client getting keys. You're going to be looking for the fit and finish, the workmanship, are the color scheme and everything exactly what your client had chosen? Is everything installed properly? Anything that's wrong that you see in the unit, point it out at this point. Okay, and they'll try and finish that before you take occupancy. Occupancy we discussed a little bit earlier today. It's almost like you're renting. Your mortgage is not starting at this point. The lower you are in the building, the longer your occupancy period. Okay. Once they've hit a certain number, usually around 80%, they can start to register the building with the city. That process can take a few months. Once you're registered, they will let you know, hey, we're going to be registered in 2 weeks. Please go to your lender and finalize your mortgage. Okay. And that's it. And then it's once everything's registered, your mortgage, you're going to go see your lawyer again, sign the final paperwork, and book your movers if you haven't moved in already. Okay, so we're going to dump this in the bootcamp folder for you guys. You guys can rip it off, R&D it, rip off and duplicate, or use it as is, up to you. I'm going to stop screen share. Okay. Where are we at now time-wise? Any questions, guys? Been rambling for about an hour. Jojo, good question. So when you log into MLS, there is a condo registry option on the left-hand side. You can check to if a building's registered or and see where they're at. They should be able to give you a heads up. The other thing you can do is actually call the city and find out where they're at, but you'll have to know. Sorry, I said I cut out. Did everybody catch that? I just got a note that I cut out there in between.
The building registry. Yeah, just say it again.
Yeah, building registry on MLS. You can check there. If not, you can check directly with the city or the developer.
Yeah.
All right. But be prepared to get the runaround from all the parties.
Can they go with Geo Warehouse too? Or
No, Geo
No,
Warehouse
right?
won't have it until after everything's registered.
Yeah.